Alright, so basically how we're going to set this up is we're going to have master character. So it's basically what is going to hold all of the stats that the player and the enemies will hold. Health, stamina, mana if you're doing that, abilities, etc. It's just going to be like the basic layout so you don't have to copy and paste code. So basically how that's going to work is we're going to go down here and we are going to create an enemy from the master character, and then from that we are going to create master player, so the player, and then from that let's just say we want to make a rogue class or a fighter or wizard. All of these will take from the player, so that's going to be like the controls, the movements. These will hold the individual components, like how they look. So like a wizard would have like a cape, a fighter would have like armor, etc. And it would also hold their abilities. So you kind of want to structure things like that. And the enemy would have like boss or grunt, mini boss. So it'll all stem from these. They are all intertwined and interconnected. But so like this main enemy would have like the AI component. So this would have like behaviors, and then this would have like more advanced behaviors, different health, all that stuff. So this is kind of how we're going to structure it. And you can kind of like take notes on this, or you could just kind of see where we're going. But this is basically how it's going to go. It's going to be really simple. We're going to do everything one step at a time. So this is kind of how it's going to look. Feel free to screenshot this if you like, or just keep it in the back of your mind. But yeah, so let's go ahead and continue on. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and get into the meat of creating characters. So let's go ahead. Under blueprints, we're going to right click. I'm just going to call it new folder. I'm going to call it characters. Set color, I'm just going to make it like orange. Double click, and I'm going to right click again. I'm going to do blueprint class, and you want to open up all classes. Type in paper ZD, and you're going to see this paper ZD character here. And we're just going to push select. We're going to call it PBP, which is parent blueprint underscore base character. Cool. So this is what is going to hold everything. This is the base for the enemies, all of that. It's going to be super simple. So how we're going to set this up is you just want to open it up, and now you see here the capsule component. So now we're going to go ahead and import our sprite. So assets, I'm going to go ahead and create a folder called characters. I'm going to create a new folder called player char for player characters. So I'm going to create again for rogue, because that's the first one I made. So let's go ahead and import that. So there I grabbed in the JSON file. That's this notepad file here. You can do a PNG if you like, but the JSON's a really cool way if you want to have really fast flipbooks created. So you just want to right click, create flipbooks. The other method you could do if you don't have a JSON file, just grab your artwork. So I'm just going to do this barrel explode, and I'm just going to drag it in. Should just be a PNG, drag and drop, right click, sprite actions, apply paper 2D settings. Right click again, sprite actions, and then you do extract sprites. And you can see here how they're all separated. Up here on the top right, change the extract method from auto to grid. And then I put here, if you're using my art set, I put the dimensions here. So this is 41 by 41. Now you can see they're all perfectly spaced apart. And now you can also change the name template. So I'll just do barrel explode 0 and extract. And so you can see they're all highlighted right now. So I'm just going to right click and then create flipbook, and then FB underscore barrel explode. So now you can see it's flipbook running as it should. So that's the other way if you don't have a JSON file. Yeah, so now we have everything. And for this base character, whatever art you would like to use, I'm just going to do ID, which is idled down. And remember earlier we scaled everything up by 4, so let's go ahead and do that. And the rotation on the X, you just want to make it 270, just like that. And you see here how he's floating. You just want to bring him all the way down and then up, just like that. And you can also adjust the half height and capsule radius. I'm going to reduce this all the way down to 34 by 34. And I'm just going to bring him up. By the way, if you hold right click, you can look around. WASD makes you kind of fly around. And if you hold middle mouse button, that brings you up and down. Cool, just like that. So go ahead and compile. I'm gonna bring him down just a little bit, and I'm actually gonna make the capsule just a little bit skinnier. He's a small boy. There we go, just like that. Feel free to adjust this however your character needs, but you just mostly want it around the feet, and we might adjust it later as well just to make it look better. But this is good for now. All right, so let's go ahead and go out, and let's go to content, blueprints, characters, and now we see the base character. Let's go ahead and make the player character first. So you right click, create child blueprint class. And so what we're going to do is do C for child, BP, player, base. So what this is going to do is it's going to create just like the base character controls for all of the other characters that are going to happen. So let's go ahead and open it up. So here we have the character. So we're just going to go ahead and keep this sprite the same. What we're going to do is hop over to the blueprints, and then I'm going to right click, go to new folder. I'm going to call it input, and I'm just going to set the color. I'm just going to make it like a teal color. That open, right click, input action, IA for input action, and I'm going to call it move. So now we're going to do right click, input mapping context. We're going to do IMC player. Go to AI move, and we want to do that, and go to IMC player, and we're going to do the mappings now. So you just want to do this plus button, and what this IMC is it's just a map of all of your controls. Basically, you can have multiple, you can switch input mapping at any time, but this is just going to be like the master of what we're going to do. So let's just go ahead and look for IA move, and we're just going to do W, and if you push this little keyboard you could push whatever you want, but I'm just going to do W for up, and then A, S, D. Go ahead and head over to the AI move, or IA move, and then you want to see this value type here. Go to axis 2D, and then push save, and you can go ahead and close. We're done with the AI move. Go ahead and head back to the IMC, and what we're going to do is we're going to create a modifier, and what this is going to be is swizzle from input axis values. This is the default for just top-down movement. On the A negate, so it's basically subtracting, what is it, x-axis, and on the S, since you're walking backwards, so you're going negative in both directions, you want to do a modifier and call it swizzle, another modifier and call it negate. So it's basically the opposite of these two. And for D, we can just leave that completely alone. That is good to go. So now we can just close that, and let's go ahead and go to the PC player. My graph is kind of a weird color, so I'm going to show you a quick little thing here. So the editor preferences, if you go to graph regular color, if you go to this eyedropper tool, I just like it to all be like similar in color. Let's go ahead and make it like that. And I'm just gonna make it just a smidge, maybe just like a smidge lighter. Just okay. But yeah, you can change these as much as you like. You can actually change the color of Unreal completely. There's themes online. You can make it like all pink or whatever, or red or purple, or green or whatever. It's really cool how much you can customize the editor. But anyways, all right, so let's just go ahead and on the PC player, event begin play, what we're going to do here is get player character, and let's just delete this tick. What we're going to do is cast to the player base, just like that. Get player character. By the way, if you hold down and push Q, it straightens them up. So if I were to do all of this, it would go like that. Control Z is undo. Promote it to a variable. So then it stores the data of the player, and you can reuse its data. And it just stores every single time the game starts. Get player controller. And now we are going to enhance input local player subsystem. Now we're going to do add mapping context, and it's just going to be this one right here. Perfect. So now if you plug it in, mapping context, you just do the IMC player, which is the one that you chose. So file, save all. So now what we're going to do is head over to the character, go here. So now after you drag it in, you can see that it's floating, which means that the collisions are really high. So let's go ahead and open up our tile map really quick. Set override collision thickness. And we're just going to check this box back on. And I'm just going to make it 0.1 to make it super, super skinny so that we don't float. So now you can set it like that. And it snaps right above the target. So there's very little space. You can always make it a little bit smaller too, but that works. So now let's go to world settings. GM action game, just to make sure our game mode is set. So let's go ahead and go to the player base, and now we're going to add a camera. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a spring arm, and then I'm going to, on the spring arm, attach a camera. And go ahead and do the first one, not the signed camera, just do the top. Now what we're going to do is rotate the spring arm 90 degrees on the y-axis, and then 90 on the x-axis, or the z-axis. So now let's go ahead and make the spring arm a little bit bigger. Let's go ahead and make it like 800. Compile. So let's go ahead and head to our game mode. Let's player controller class, default Pong class. We're just going to set that as our child player base. And so let's go ahead and delete that. This little box here, you can quickly add something. And if you don't hover over any of these options here, so if you stay up here, you can type player start. You can drag it out just like that. So now when we push play, you can see that we have the character and we have the camera. The only thing is that we can't move yet. So let's go ahead and take care of that now. Let's go ahead and go to the player. Let's go to the player base, and what we're going to do is create our input system here. So we're just going to type in IA_move, and it's just going to be this top one here. So now you want to drag from the triggered, because that's going to have more than one input at a time. And so from here, you just want to do add movement input. And I'm going to make sure this is clicked, Control D, and then drag that in here. You can straighten it up. And from here, what we're going to do is see this action value right here. We're going to right click, split struct pin. And so now you can connect this X into the scale value of the first one. So how this is going to work, it's basically going to be left, right, and then C, down, up, just like that. Quick tip. If you want to change the default color of this ugly grayish white, you can go ahead and go to editor preferences, type in comment, and the default comment node, I like to make it kind of like a desaturated, like dark blue. Nice color. So now if I push C, you can see that the comment appears and it looks nice. Looks better than the white. Go ahead. You can also change the color here too. Alright, so now let's go ahead and get the Y. And what we're going to do here is just plug it in here. There's a couple different ways you could do it, but this is the simplest way. So go ahead and get player character. And what we're going to do is we're going to plug it into the target. Because what we're going to do is move the target, which is the player character, left or right, and then we're going to move it also up and down based on the directions that we have predetermined in the input action context and the mapping. So now we're going to create our first variables. It's going to be super easy. There's a little section down here called variables. So let's go ahead and push the plus button. And we're going to call this directionality. And so this is the variable type. And you can also access it up here. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on it. And now you can see a whole bunch of different stuff. If you open it up, you can see all these options. Type in vector 2D. And it's just going to be the simple vector 2D at the very bottom. Right here. It's the blue one. So compile. If you hold Alt and drag out directionality, you can set it. And if you hold Control, it gets it. So Control, get, Alt, set. And another thing you could do is just drag it out and then get our set. But if you want to eventually get used to shortcuts, then here's a little tip. Right click directionality, split struct pin. And you can see now that the X and Y show up. If you double click the node, it creates a reroute node. And that's really helpful for keeping your code kind of organized and clean. And if you double click, you can do that, reroute node here, and then you want to drag the action value X from the reroute node all the way into the X. So what this is doing is it's setting us up so we can determine the animations a little bit later down the line as well. So now we're going to create one more variable, and we're going to call it is holding move. You can set the variable type to a boolean, compile and save. And so we are going to hold alt, drag it out, hold alt, drag it out again, and on started we're going to set it to true. On completed we are going to set it to false. So this is true. When it's checked, it's true. When it's unchecked, it's false. So you just want to make sure these two are true and false, basically. From the add input movement, you want to set it X to 1, and then the Y -1. So compile. And now, if we push WASD, you can see that our player is moving. Congratulations, you have made the character move. Hell yeah, great job so far. By the way, if you guys have any questions, feel free to add comments. I will try my best to get back to you as fast as possible. Fastest way to reach me is also through Discord. So congratulations, we have officially set up the basic input and we have gotten the character to move. So next up, let's go ahead and make the animations. Alright, so now let's go ahead and create the animations for our character. So let's go ahead and you could put this wherever you like. But let's just go ahead and do characters, and then I'm just going to create a new folder, call it anims, NMBPs. And what we're going to do here is right click, and we're going to go to paper ZD, and we are going to create an animation source. We're going to call this AS for animation source, player, rogue. I'm going to do that one first since we might open up the possibilities of having more than one character. So let's go ahead and double click this, and we're just going to do add new. Then double click, you could do right click, rename, or you could push F2. I'm gonna call it idle. And what we're gonna do now is we are going to come over to this side and go in the animation data, type in ID, and that kind of sets the frame rate for every single animation. And so we're going to click this checkbox, multi-directional sequence, and if you think about a joystick, right, this is the right. If you hold shift and hover, sometimes you kind of have to like click, but if you hold shift, it'll hover over everything. So this is like the right, down, left, up. So while we're in this section, you actually want to fill this in with IU, which is idle up, just like that. So now you can see he's facing up. And now let's just do ID for idle down, and then IR for idle right, IL for idle left. So now if you hold shift, you can see he's rotating just like that. So now let's go ahead and save that, and then add new animation sequence, and we're just going to call this walk or run, whatever you want to call it. So animation data, I'm going to call it WU, walk up. And so now we're going to do the multi-directional sequence again, idle up, and then we're just going to do, walk up, WR for walk right, click on the down, WD for walk down, and then WL for walk left. So now if you hover, you can see he's running in all the different directions. Alright, so now I'm going to save. If you click on that, save, or another thing you could do is just save all. Alright, so now that we have the animation sequence, or animation source, we're going to right click, go to paper ZD, and now we're going to create the paper ZD NMBP. You can see here our AS has shown, so let's click it and call it ABP player rogue. So now let's double click that, and we could dock it. A cool little thing is that if you click this animation box, you can see the animations that we just created. So you could swap in between while you're working really, really easily. It's super, super nice. So what we're going to do here is we're going to right click on the player base, create child blueprint class. Name it CBP rogue, because this is going to be our first subclass, that our playable character. And I just add a P in front of it to represent the player. So let's open them up, save. Let's just go ahead and open up our game mode, and then we'll change the default pawn to our rogue, since we're just going to go ahead and test out the rogue. So now if you push play, you are playing as the rogue. So go ahead and create one more child blueprint. So if you right click player base, create child BP, CBP, fighter. So now you can see we have a rogue and a fighter. I just went ahead and created the rogue. Let's keep it on the rogue for now, since we have the artwork for that ready to go. If you push compile, play, you can see that you can still move, and then you also have the rogue here, and it works perfectly because it pulls off of your parent. Awesome. So for the ABP, we're going to drag out to cast to BPP rogue. The underscore P is the player. So let's do that, and then get paper character. And then we are going to promote this to a variable. And this is just the reference to the main character. So save all. And one thing we're going to do as well, this is really important for this to work, and a lot of people miss it, is go to your rogue and then go to the animation component, anim instance class. You want to set it here. And then compile and save. So you want to make sure that matches up with your rogue. Okay. So now you see up here, it's called an anim graph. You can also access it through over here. You can switch in between. They're just two different tabs. So we're going to be working in here. So the first thing we're going to do is create a state machine. So add new state machine, and I'm going to call it base. And we're just going to plug that right in. So go ahead and double click. And this is where we're going to handle all of our animations. So let's go ahead and pull out animation state. And we're just going to call this idle. And then if you hover over this little border here, you can pull out from here, make another animation state. And then we're just going to call this walk or run, whichever you prefer to call it. If you drag from the walk, you can see this arrow. You want to go back just like that. So it goes back and forth. So now, if you double click in the idle, what we're going to do is we're going to type in idle. This is the animation from here. So the animation we named. So if you called it something else like stand or something, this is what it would be called. Same with the walk. So let's go ahead and play idle. And what we're going to do is hold control and drag it out, or you could just control and get. And this is the player reference. So this is here from the rogue. And let's go ahead and close the game mode. From here, go ahead and get the directionality that we made earlier, where the controls, we set it based on our movement. So this is basically pulling from our current movement that is actively being set and setting the directionality. And we're just going to do set directionality, which is here. Animation, plug that in, plug that in. You can hover, push Q, compile, and it's good to go. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy all these three nodes here. You want to go to base, double click walk, and you could paste. It's super easy. And from here, you're going to right click, type in walk. So play walk, just like that. Cool. So this is what it looks like. Now you can see when we push play, it plays idle. So if you tap A, S, D, this is the directionality setting this animation, by the way. So when you are in the base player, if you want a little bit more clarification, where this input action value X and Y from our input actions is setting the world direction and setting our directionality variable. So whatever output you are doing, so WASD, which we made in the IMC earlier, this is the directionality value that's going to be set. So also another thing as well, feel free to skip to the next video if you already understand, but just to be sure, if you do print string, and then if you push play, you can see my X value is 1. Now my Y value is 1 because I'm going down. Now I'm going 1, -1, 1, -1. You can see it's all in 1 values. So this is perfect. You can delete that. All right, see you in the next video. Cool, so now let's go ahead and make the transitions. So let's go to our ABP, player rogue, go to base. By the way, if you ever get lost, you can always double click and then you get back in. So what these are transitions. And it's basically rules. That's like, okay, what determines you going into the walk cycle? So let's go ahead and push. There's a couple ways you could do this. How we had it set up was is holding move. Another thing that you could do is determine the velocity, but the simplest way to get it to work right now is from here. Remember we did it is holding move. This is what we're going to pull from. So let's go ahead and get our rogue and get is holding move. And if it's true, that means that we're walking and we're allowed to go into the walk cycle. And then over here, you can actually copy, go to the walk to idle, and if you do paste, and then not equal, not bool. So if you're not holding move, so it's like if it's false, you plug that in, compile. Now we are walking. You did it. Goofy looking walk. I'm definitely going to be improving this artwork. Yeah, there you go. Your little rogue running around. Hell yeah, dude. You did it. All right. Again, if you need any help with anything, look me up on Discord, leave a comment here. Got you.